Hey guys, how's it going? All right, is that a better angle? Let's see. So today we're going to be discussing some intermediate exercises for U-bass. So it's not just going to be the simple 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing where we've got that going and then we're working on alternating our fingers. We're going to apply that same kind of stuff to some more difficult things. We're going to be talking about 7th chord arpeggios for a few of them. We're going to be doing some octave exercises. We're going to be doing one called the spider. So if you're familiar with string instruments, you may have come across the spider exercise before. It's pretty cool. And then we're going to be doing something where we double some of the octave exercises. So if you like videos like these, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. And if you're already a subscriber, say hey. So let's just jump into it. The first exercise is going to look like this. It's a 1 finger per fret exercise where we go across all the strings and then we come back the other way. And let me know if you can hear me. If you can or can't hear me on here, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. But I will go ahead and play this. So you get the idea. You can go all the way up the neck with this one. And this one's a little bit tricky. Thanks for letting me know that y'all can hear me. So basically, what we were doing before in the easier version of this exercise was we were doing 1 finger per fret on the same string, 4 frets in a row, and then on our right hand we were alternating index, middle, index, middle. So what we're doing now is we're also going to alternate, well, we're going to change strings with each one of those notes. So our first note is going to be the 1st fret on the E string. Then we're going to be playing the 2nd fret on the A string, the 3rd fret on the D string, and the 4th fret on the G string. And then this hand is going to alternate. Index, middle, index, middle. So our plucking hand is alternating index, middle, index, middle. And this hand is 1st frets are gotten by the index finger, 2nd fret by the middle finger, 3rd fret by the ring finger, and 4th fret by the pinky. So I think the most challenging part of this is actually the right hand alternating the fingers as you're going down. Hello, Paula. Good morning where you're at. It's 7 p.m. here. So I'm guessing, I can't remember, were you the one from Australia? Is it 7 a.m. over there? But yes, we're doing 1 finger per fret with this hand, and then this hand is still alternating fingers. If you have trouble doing both those at the same time, just focus on one hand, and I would focus on the left hand first, since we've already done some alternate finger exercises on some of the other lessons. Very cool. So we've got that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to slide up 1 fret, so our index finger is going to go to the 2nd fret. And now we're going to start on the G string and go backwards. So we're doing the 2nd fret on the G string with our pointer finger, the 3rd fret on the the 3rd fret on the D string. It's hard for me to say stuff too. 3rd fret on the D string is your next note. 4th fret on the A string, and 5th fret on the E string. So this one's kind of weird. Frets 2, 3, 4, 5, going from the thinnest strings to the thickest strings. And then your right hand is still alternating, which means you're going to start with your index finger. Then you're going to play your middle finger on the D string, your index finger on the A string, and your middle finger on the E string. So this one's an intermediate. Some people would consider it even an advanced exercise. Because there's so many other things, I'm just going to call it intermediate, but this one is a lot trickier than the other ones. So recapping what we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, going from thickest string to thinnest string. Then we're going 2, 3, 4, 5, going from thinnest string to thickest string, and those are fret numbers. Now we're going to shift up to our pointer fingers on the 3rd fret. So now we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, going from the thickest string to the thinnest string. And then we're going to shift up 1 and start on the thinnest string. And that's 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's pretty tricky, but here's what it sounds like all together. You keep going. So hopefully you've realized the pattern of sliding up 1 fret and then essentially doing the same thing. So on this one, there's a lot of things to keep track of. There's, have I slid up a fret, you know, when you're going up versus down? Sometimes it's hard to remember which fret to start on in this one because you're ending on your pinky and going back to your pointer finger on that string. So it's a little bit tricky because your pointer finger is going up 1 after you hit your pinky. Okay, so that part's confusing. The other part that's confusing is just remembering to be on a different string with each one of those fingers. And then the other part that's really the most difficult, I think, is alternating your fingers throughout all this. So my right hand is literally going index, middle, 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 and so forth. As you can see, I even missed one of them there. It's a really hard one to do. So I'm starting with this one because the concept's pretty straightforward, but it's not an easy exercise. So if you do this one, do it very, very slowly at first and try to focus on each individual thing until you're fairly confident that you're doing it correctly. And then you can speed up a little bit and try getting it to a medium speed. And you can go all the way up the neck. If you have fret buzz up here, it's a little bit harder to do, but it may sound a little funky up there. But with the Journeyman, with the metal strings, I don't have that issue. Sometimes with the rubber strings, there'll be a buzz somewhere on the neck just because they vibrate wider. All right, so that is referred to as the spider by a lot of people. I'm not sure who came up with it, but it's like your hand looks like a spider kind of crawling when it's doing that. So that one's the spider. Now we've got some octave exercises. So basically with octaves, it's really more of a string skip exercise for the right hand. So if you look here, you're hitting the E string, then going to the D string for an octave. So you're skipping over the A string. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the A string and then play the G string after that. So we're going E string, skip over to the D string, coming back to the A string, and then going to the G string. And then our right hand is just playing a set of 2 different octaves. So we're doing the F note and then the B flat note. So this one's a lot easier than the other exercise, but it's just about getting these fingers used to going from one string, skipping over the other, and then coming back and then skipping over the other. You get the idea. So it's just getting these fingers used to having that space in order to skip over a string, and then doing that on the E string and the D string, and then coming back to the A string and the G string. And what I'm doing there is just basically where my pointer finger is starting. I'm starting on the 1st fret and doing those two sets of octaves, and then I'm going to the 2nd fret and just doing an octave there, and then an octave starting on the 2nd fret on the A string after starting on the 2nd fret of the E string. And then if you wanted to, you could reverse it and do the octave pairs backwards. So that means you'd be doing starting on the 3rd fret on the D string and coming back to the 1st fret on the E string, and then you go to the 3rd fret on the G string and come back to the 1st fret on the A string. So that was kind of more confusing. I actually haven't done that one at all. I just thought that would be a cool variation to throw in there. It's kind of a finger twister itself. Okay, and so then after we do that, we could try something where we keep working on string skipping, but we're going to double what the right hand is doing. So we'd be going. And so on. I sped it up just to give you an idea of playing it a little bit faster. But basically there, we're still doing the octave pairs that we were doing. We're just going index middle on each one. So now when we go index middle, we're having to jump over the A string to the D string with the index finger. So to practice this, you could just use one finger and do the octave pair, the octave exercise that we were doing before. And then your pointer fingers will be used to skipping over the strings. And then that way we can just add a middle finger after that on each one. So it ends up being 2 first fret on the E string notes. And we're going to do that index middle on the right hand. Then we're going to go to the 3rd fret on the D string and play 2 notes there. And then we're going to go back to the 1st fret on the A string this time and the 3rd fret on the G string. And we're hitting 2 of each note. And so all I was doing after that was just the same thing we were doing in the other exercise, where after doing it on the 1st fret, we go to the 2nd fret and start our octave pair there. But the right hand is staying the same on that. So that helps with some string skipping. And those are kind of some tricky things. So now that we've learned the spider and these octave exercises, what I want to do is combine the spider with the first of those octave exercises. So your hand is set up like this. And if you notice when you're doing the spider, your 1st fret is on the E string. And then I'm going to skip over this finger for a second. And then you notice you have the 3rd fret on the D string. Well, those 2 are an octave. 1 on the E string, 1st fret on the E string, and then 3rd fret on the D string. Right? And then we've got another octave pair here with the middle finger and the pinky. 2nd fret on the A string and 4th fret on the G string. So basically, we're just incorporating our middle finger and our pinky into the exercise that we were doing with octaves. So check this out. So we've got that. And then what I like to do is continue with the spider fingering. So this next one is not octaves, right? So now what we've got, it's like a minor 6th, I believe. But we're doing them backwards. So this one is more advanced because it's just kind of weird, right? So we're still alternating index middle with each note. So that's not changing. But this hand position is weird, right? So once we got done doing 1st fret on the E string, 3rd fret on the D string, 2nd fret on the A string, 4th fret on the G string, we shift up like we would on the spider. But now we're going to play the 2nd fret on the G string, and then skip over a string. We're going to play the 4th fret on the A string. We're going to come back to the 3rd fret on the D string, and then we're going to go to the 5th fret on the E string. So far we've got So how many of you guys are trying these exercises with me? How many of you got this down and you're just kind of going through them with me? If you've got your bass or U-bass handy, go ahead and get it, and I'm going to try to count, and then you guys can play along with me. So that is our goal. I think we should probably go back to the easier ones really to do that. So let's just jump back a little bit and do the spider. So everybody grab your basses or your U-basses or your short scale basses or whatever you got, your what is it, an Ashbury, just anything that you've got. And now what we're going to do is we're going to jump backwards to the spider exercise. So I'm going to count you guys in, and we're going to do it together at hopefully a kind of slow medium tempo. So it may still be too fast for you, but I'll try to bring it down pretty slow. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. This is the easier one from earlier. Okay. Okay, so let me just talk about which one that is real quick before we start, because I realize that might be confusing. We're going to be playing first fret on the E string, second fret on the A string, third fret on the D string, fourth fret on the G string. Then we're going to shift up second fret on the G string with our pointer finger, third fret on the D string with our middle finger, fourth fret on the A string with our ring finger, and fifth fret on the E string with our pinky. Then we're going to shift up again, third fret on the E string with our pointer finger, fourth fret on the A string with our middle finger, fifth fret on the D string with our ring finger, and sixth fret on the G string with our pinky. That's the exercise that we're doing right now. So let's just do that much. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shift. 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 So you guys can come back to that when the live stream's over, and maybe you can slow the speed down on the video if that's too fast for you. But if it's not too fast for you, then congratulations on getting through it. That's not an easy exercise. All right, I see some familiar faces in here. Very cool, Seth, on the Oscar Schmidt. How do you like it so far? All right. And Robert, I'm not sure if you're being serious or sarcastic there, but I know that some of these are a little bit tricky, so I'm assuming that it might be sarcasm if we're playing it fast, but hopefully you've got it at that speed. Okay, so now let's do the octave exercise that we did. So this one's the one that sounds like this. Okay, we'll just do that much of it. So this is going to be the first fret on the E string, third fret on the D string, and with this hand we're using our index for the first note and our middle finger for the second note. And then we're going to jump back to the first fret on the A string. We're going to go an octave up from there. Sorry, tripped over my words. To the third fret on the G string. So then we're going to slide up to the second fret and do the same thing. Second fret on the E string, fourth fret on the D string, second fret on the A string, and fourth fret on the G string. And then we'll slide up from there and do the exact same thing on the third fret and the fourth fret, and that'll be it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Try to look down at your hands if you need to, because like as you noticed, I got a little bit of buzz on that note because I was too far back in the fret. You can tell. Try to be in the middle of the fret on all of those. But if you get a little bit of buzz, that's just an extra thing to kind of go back in and work on after the fact. I would say get the coordination first and then do that. Yeah, so just take your time on these. If these are hard, it probably means, well, one, that we just haven't experienced these particular sets of things first, but two, they're always the beginner warm-ups that I have on that beginner playlist, and I highly recommend going back through those and trying to build speed on those before doing these. Okay, so now that we've got the octaves down, I'm not going to worry about going backwards with the octave yet. So what we'll do next is we'll do that double the octave exercise first. So one thing that helps to do this, like I said before, was do the previous exercise with the pointer finger only. So why don't we do that first? Same set of notes, but your right hand, you're only going to use your pointer finger and just let the rest of your hand kind of like hang loose so that your middle finger would be ready to play, but we're just going to play with index finger. And this is to prepare us for the next one. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to double each note. So it's going to sound like, if you notice what my right hand is doing, that's index middle on the E string and skipping down to the D string, index middle. So you're going, bup, 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 if that's hard to do on its own, just focus on the right hand. In fact, let's do that together. We'll leave the strings open right now, and I just want you to play the E string twice, index, middle, then go to the D string, index, middle, come back to the A string, index, middle, and then go up to the G string, index, middle. Hi, Anne. How are you doing? So we can do that together too. So I'm going to count in 1, 2 as quarter notes, but we're going to play eighth notes. So I'm going to go a little bit slower. 1, 2, all on open strings. 3, 4. E, E, D, D, A, G, G. Do it again. E, E, D, D, A, G, G. Now let's add the right hand notes, sorry, the left hand notes into that. So we're just going to fret the same thing we did on the last exercise. We're just playing 2 of each note now. So it'll sound like this. So let's try it together, and we'll go through that whole exercise that way. So first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret with the pointer finger. We're going to do those shifts and do the exercise in each spot. And I'm just going to give you 3 and we're going to give you 3 and 4 and before we come in. 3 and 4 and. Go to the second fret. Third fret. And the fourth fret. I just want to note, for me, it's easier to leave my thumb hanging up in the air while I'm playing the E string, and then as soon as I switch to one of the other strings, my thumb comes down and mutes the string. So it's not ringing out after that, right? And then, so we're playing fretted notes on the exercise, letting go of those strings, just releasing the pressure on the strings will actually mute the other strings for you. That's why you don't hear extra strings ringing out, is because this hand is already muting those other strings just by sitting on the strings. All right. So if you have trouble with just alternating index middle, then definitely just focus on one hand at a time. Like I was saying, and don't worry about the notes ringing out. If you are concerned about them ringing out, you can mute them with your left hand after you play them, if you want to. But it's not important if we're just focusing on that hand. Okay. So now we're going to try jumping back once. This one doesn't have all the like crazy fast alternating. It's not like, we're not going to be doing that. We're just going to be doing 1 note per string at this point. We're going to go back to the spider hand position, and we talked about this one. We're going to play the octaves that are within the spider hand position. So that means if you have your pointer finger on the first fret, your middle finger on the second fret, your ring finger on the third fret, your pinky on the fourth fret, and they're all on different strings, pointer on the E string, middle on the A string, ring finger on the D string, and pinky on the G string. Then what we'll do is we'll play the E string with this hand, then jump up to the D string note, come back to the A string note, and then go to the G string note that we just designated earlier. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, I explained it a little bit slower earlier on in the video, and you can always go back to this after the live lessons through. So that's the first part. Whoops. An important thing here, you can let go of the note after you've played it. You don't have to hold them all down, because that's kind of, 1, it'll make the notes ring out. 2, it'll just be a pain on this hand. So what I would do is like play the E string, then jump up to that ring finger note on the D string, then come back after and let the other one go. When you let them go, you don't have to let your fingers fly off the strings. You can just release the pressure, and then it'll automatically mute that string as you're playing the next one. Okay, and then the next part's going to look like this. This is probably the hardest thing that we've done so far on this one. This might be considered a little bit more advanced or upper intermediate or something of that nature. So what I would do here is the 2nd fret on the G string with the pointer finger. Then we're going to jump down to the 4th fret on the A string with the middle finger on this hand, but the ring finger on the fretting hand. I'm going back and forth between hands too quickly. Pointer finger, 2nd fret, G string. And then we'll do the 4th fret ring finger on the A string. Then we'll come back to the 3rd fret D string with our middle finger. And then 5th fret, this is probably the hardest one to reach, 5th fret E string with our pinky. Now, if this is really hard for you to reach, it probably will be. It'll be easier on the rubber strings to push down than it would be on the metal strings, just because that is a huge stretch, right? One of the secrets here is if you're having trouble getting your pinky to that note, it may be that your hand back here is too high up, or let's see, which ways make it hard to reach that E string. If your hand is way up here and you're trying to reach that, like let's say your thumb's hanging out way up here, can't really reach it, right? So what you're gonna have to do is bring your thumb down a little bit to get your hand to arc a little bit more. And unfortunately, getting that note might cause you to put a little bit of an angle on your wrist. So we just want to like not sit on that note too long. You know what I mean? Don't pause and overthink it. But for me, what helps is have my thumb a little bit lower than normal, and then that way I can do that. Get leverage with the pinky. So let's just do that one time real quick. Just this position where we're starting with our pointer finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and so then the extra added step to that is our right hand is going to be alternating fingers. Index, middle, index, middle. So that's just an extra added challenge. But this is a really good one for dexterity. If you have trouble with these things, it's a good one to go through. Just be patient with yourself. It is kind of a hard one to do, and try to keep those things in mind as far as how to reach those notes a little bit easier. If your thumb's way up here, it's going to be virtually impossible. So unless your hands are a lot bigger than mine, but that's a different story. So yeah, so this is kind of a finger twister for sure. So after we've got that, we'll go up to the 3rd fret on the E string, and we'll do the same thing that we were doing on the 1st fret, where we fan our fingers out 1 finger per fret across all the strings. So each finger is on a different string. So that one's not really too hard. You're just going to be starting on the 3rd fret is the only difference. Sorry. And then we're going to be skipping the octaves. I went back to the other exercise in my brain for a second. We're still going to be doing the octaves here. So 3rd fret on the E string, 5th fret on the D string, 4th fret on the A string, and 6th fret on the G string. And then we're going to go up to the 4th fret and do our weird, hard backwards thing. And that's going to be 4th fret on the G string, 6th fret on the A string, and that'll be with our ring finger. And then we'll come back to the 5th fret on the D string, and then we'll go to the 7th fret on the E string. So let's just do all that together. I'm going to go at a slower speed because this one is tricky. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shift. 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 All right, so that's all I'm going to go through now with you guys, but you could continue that same pattern with those same concepts all the way up the neck. So, you know, we could keep going. It's tricky, but it's a really good one. So all these things are really good. They help with your finger dexterity. Awesome. Everything's cool. You may want to stretch after playing them just because, man, they're a little bit tough. But they're not super musical on their own. They sound kind of dissonant, and they're kind of intervals that we typically avoid, right? Because they sound kind of dissonant to the ear. So we'll do one that's not as dissonant, but it requires us to know how to do a seventh, a major 7, a minor 7, a dominant 7, and even a diminished 7 arpeggio. So I'm going to play the exercise and maybe not harp too much on explaining what that means, but I will explain the 7th chord idea, and I'll briefly talk about the difference between them. But this next exercise is just going to be playing the arpeggios with the 7th in them. Right? If you wanted to, you could add the octave at the end. Why don't we do that? Right, and so this is where we could keep going up the scale. And then we got, so we run out of frets over there, we have to totally change our pattern. So I may just tell you what to play up there, or we may just go up to the 5th note of the scale, just so that we're stopping where the body starts in case you don't have that cutaway. Okay, so why don't we just do that? We'll just go to here. So first, we're going to be doing a major 7th arpeggio. This is, if you know the major scale, we're going to be playing the 1st note of that scale, the 3rd note, the 5th note, so that's our normal arpeggio, and then we're going to add the 7th note of the major scale to it. So we got 1, 2, 3, that's the 3rd note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the 5th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's the 7th note. And then we'll end on the octave. So 1, 3, 5, 7 ends up being the 3rd fret on the E string, the 2nd fret on the A string, the 5th fret on the A string, the 4th fret on the D string, and we're going to end on the 5th fret on the D string. So that's our major 7 shape. Okay, and then now we're going to go up to the 2nd note of the G major scale, which is A, but we're going to play this note on the E string. So just trust me, that's the 5th fret on the E string. If we don't already know this, then there's some theory we got to go back in and kind of make sure that we understand, but we can still play the exercise even if we don't know that theory. So what we're doing there is a minor 7 arpeggio. So if you've ever played the minor scale, then this would be the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th note of the minor scale, and we're going to be doing that of the A minor scale. So that's going to end up being the 5th fret on the E string, the 8th fret on the E string, the 7th fret on the A string, and the 5th fret on the D string. And if we want that octave at the end, we've got the 7th fret on the D string as well. Okay? And so then memorize what your fingers are doing here. We're doing 1 finger per fret, and we're starting on the pointer finger on this minor shape. The next one is also going to be minor. Right? So we're going to literally do the same pattern, but I'm just going to tell you the fret names and watch really closely to see which fingers I'm using to play them over here. So we've got the 7th fret on the E string, then the 10th fret on the E string, then the 9th fret on the A string, the 7th fret on the D string, and the 9th fret on the D string to round it out. Okay? And so after that, we're going to stay in that same finger position, and we're going to do we're going to start on the 8th fret on the E string, and this time we're doing a major 7 arpeggio. Okay? So that's going to be 1, 3, 5, 7 and 8 of the C major scale this time, and we're using the 8th fret on the E string to play that C. So this could be 8th fret on the E string, and look closely at what my fingers are doing. My pointer finger is going to get the 7th fret on the A string. My pinky's going to get the 10th fret on the A string. Then my ring finger is going to get the 9th fret, so 9th fret on the D string. And then my pinky's going to get the 10th fret on the D string. notice that I started with my middle finger. Okay. All right, and so now we're going to go up to the 10th fret, and this one's going to be slightly different than those two that we just did. And I'm going to have to plug in my computer real quick. So hold on one second. I forgot to plug the power in. It's going to die if I don't. If you're just joining, I apologize for being off camera. All right. So this last one, we're going to be doing the 10th fret. This is called a dominant 7 arpeggio, by the way. So what it is we're doing the major 3-note arpeggio. So we're just using our normal arpeggio shape there. And then we're going to add a flat 7 to it. So if you were playing a major scale built off of the 10th fret on the E string, which happens to be a D, we're going to play 1, 3, and 5 of that scale, first note, third note, and fifth note, in other words. And then instead of playing the 7th note from that scale, we're going to flat that note, which means -1 fret. And then we'll end it with the 12th fret with our pinky. And that's as far as we'll go right now. We won't worry about the diminished arpeggios like I was saying before, although there's a video on how to do those as well. I believe the arpeggio video covers major, minor, diminished, and augmented. So it's a lot of stuff to cover. All right. And yes, if you like the video, please hit the thumbs up. But don't give it a thumbs down just because it's a hard concept or something. I know it's tough stuff. If it's pretty tricky, just mention in the comments something like, "Hey, I don't understand this part," and then I can explain that, because chances are other people watching this video later will have the same questions that you do. So please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer those questions as well. And when we get done with this, I'll answer a few questions that I've gotten over the past couple of days, as well as some new questions from you guys, if you have any today. So let's see. We were here. We were doing all this. Right? So this one might be hard for us to play along together without some sort of visual aid. So I'm not sure what to do about that. We'll try to just do the play along right now. Just know that you're doing a major 7 arpeggio starting on the 3rd fret on the E string, a minor 7 arpeggio starting on the 5th fret on the E string, a minor arpeggio starting on the 7th fret, and this minor 7, by the way, we're adding the 7 into all these arpeggios. And then we're going to do a major 7 arpeggio starting on the 8th fret, and a dominant 7 arpeggio starting on the 10th fret. Okay? So for the major and the dominant, we're going to start with our middle finger. And on the minor 7 arpeggios, we're going to start with our pointer fingers. Okay. So here's how it sounds one more time. That was major. That was minor. Minor, and then major. And then dominant. I wonder if we can go slow enough for me to tell you the frets and the strings in time. It may overwhelm you though, so we might go through this twice, once with me saying those things and once with me just telling you where the shifts happen. Okay, so here it is, slowly. Hopefully I'll be able to give you all that information in real time. 1, 2, 3, start on the 3rd fret, 4 on the E string. 3rd fret E, 2nd fret A, 5th fret A, 4th fret D, this is not going to work, 5th fret D. Okay, now we're going to shift up. We're going to do a minor arpeggio starting on the 5th fret on the E string. I'm going to count you off on each one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5th fret E, 8th fret E, 7th fret A, 5th fret D, and 7th fret D. Yeah, this is going to be tricky to say on time. All right, and then now we're going to go up to the 7th fret on the E string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7th fret E, pinky, 10th fret E, 9th fret A, This is too hard to do in time. Sorry, guys. 7th fret D and 9th fret D. So let's just do that one in that position together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is cover the next one. You're going to start on the 8th fret on the E string, and we're going to be doing a major 7 arpeggio here. So that's going to be the 8th fret on the E string, 7th fret on the A string, 10th fret on the A string, 9th fret on the D string, and 10th fret on the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got that. So now we're going to go up to the 10th fret on the E string, and we're going to use our middle finger because this one's going to be a dominant 7 arpeggio. And this is going to be the 10th fret on the E string, 9th fret on the A string, 12th fret on the A string, then 10th fret on the D string, and 12th fret on the D string. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I'm going to count in, and we'll play it all the way through from the beginning to the end there. And I'm just going to tell you if it's a major, a minor, or a dominant 7th arpeggio. So I might leave out the word 7th, but if I say major, just know that I mean major 7. If I say dominant, I mean a major 3rd, but a flatted 7. And then minor is just going to be 1, 3, 5, 7 on the minor scale. If you missed anything, just go back a little bit in this video, and you'll be able to do that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Major. 1, get ready for minor. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Next one's minor. 3, 4. Next one's major. Stay in the same position. 3, 4. Next one's dominant. 2, 3, 4. All right. So that one's kind of tricky, but that is the idea. So I would definitely go over this one a lot. Try to get the concepts. Try to hear the difference between the major arpeggio and the minors, and the once again the major and the dominants. And then our goal is to not have to add 4 beats to the end of each one. So it would just be like bum 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 bum. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. Rest repeat 4, and that's the idea. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2. I guess we're just doing, and it's in like 3/4. So we're playing 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. So let's do that slowly. Same notes. 1 and 2 and 3. 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 Okay, so if that one's tricky for you, I highly recommend going over the arpeggios part. And we're basically just adding the 7th note of each scale to those arpeggios. So go back and look at the scale videos as well. If for some reason you can't find mine, really you could just type in electric bass scales, and they'll probably, major scale or electric bass minor scale, and you can find videos on this. If you want my own videos, there is a beginner playlist on my channel. So you can just go to my channel, go to the playlist tab, and look for beginner tutorials. It's like U-Bass beginner tutorials, I believe is what I called it. And if you look through that list, you'll see one on scales. You'll probably see one on major scale, one on a minor scale, and one on arpeggios. So those are the ones that will help you with this. Okay, So now that we've got that down, the next one that I want to show you uses the same ideas here. But what's... And if you want to keep going. Go backwards. Oops, I've started doing it the way I'm comfortable doing it. But this one's a little bit trickier, but this is something that I saw on a Jaco Pastorius instructional video. So I thought it might be kind of cool to include this. But basically what he's doing is he's going up one major arpeggio and stopping on the 7th. And then he's going to the 7th of the next arpeggio and going backwards down that one. Then he's shifting up and going up the next one. And then on this one, since we don't really have to shift for the next one, he's just going down the next one from the 7th of that arpeggio. And I get that that's kind of some confusing stuff. I think going over the scales, and really feel free to ask some questions over here in the box. If it's something that's easy to explain that you're confused on, then I'll try to explain it on the video. And if it's something that's a little more difficult, I'll try to point you in the right direction on how to find some video that can explain it in a longer form. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you the fret numbers and what I'm doing on the shifts, because we should know where our fingers are assigned to the frets when we're in this position. So we're going to start on our middle finger on the 3rd fret on the E string. We're going to play 3rd fret on the E string, 2nd fret on the A string, 5th fret on the A string, 4th fret on the D string. Now we're going to shift. So shift your pointer finger to the 5th fret on the D string. Okay, then we're going to play the 7th fret on the A string with our ring finger. Then we're going to play the 8th fret on the E string with our pinky. And then we're going to play the 5th fret on the E string with our pointer finger. Now we're going to shift up to the 7th fret on the E string. Then the 10th fret on the E string. Then the 9th fret on the A string. And then the 7th fret on the D string. Let me make sure I said this right. 7th on the E string, 10th on the E string, 9th on the A string, and 7th on the D string. Okay, and then we're going to stay in the same position. Our ring finger is going to be playing the 9th fret on the D string. Then we're going to play the 10th fret on the A string, then the 7th fret on the A string, and then the 8th fret on the E string. All right, now we're going to shift up. We're going to be doing the 10th fret on the E string, 9th fret on the A string, 12th fret on the A string, 10th fret on the D string, and then why don't we just go backwards down the scale at this point. So now we're going to shift our ring finger to the 9th fret on the D string. Then we're going to play the 10th fret on the A string with our pinky, the 7th fret on the A string with our pointer finger, and then the 8th fret on the E string with our middle finger. Stay in that same position. Let's see. I have to go back and check something real quick. Yeah. Now we're going to go to the 7th fret on the E string, the 10th fret on the E string, the 9th fret on the A string, and then we're going to play the 7th fret on the D string. And now we're going to scoot backwards down, and we're going to use our pointer finger on the 5th fret of the D string. Sorry, I was using a different version of the pattern, but I think this one's going to be easier. So pointer finger, 5th fret, D string. Then the 7th fret on the A string. The 10th fret, or the 8th frets, pardon me, the 8th fret on the E string, and the 5th fret on the E string as well. And then we finally end with our original arpeggio. So this is going to be 3rd fret on the E string, 2nd fret on the A string, 5th fret on the A string, 4th fret on the D string, and 5th fret on the D string as well. So I'm going to play through it once, So the hardest thing, as you heard, I kind of missed it over there too, is that shift. So we got shifting to your ring finger is really tricky. If you want to shift on the note after that, that's fine as well. Just know that this is the position that we need to shift down to. So just giving you a heads up, that's probably going to be the trickiest thing about that one. Let's play it together a little bit slower than that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Crazy shift. So I'm just going to say where you shift on each one this time. 1, 2, same thing. 3, 4. Shift. Shift. Stay in the same place. Shift. Hard shift. Stay in the same place. Shift. Shift. So hopefully that gives you an idea, and you can kind of go back through and watch this a couple times once it becomes the replay, and just kind of focus on what the pattern is and really see it on there. I may decide to notate these out for you guys. I haven't figured that out yet, but it does seem like a good idea since these are trickier exercises. But that's basically it for these. So if you have any questions about any of these where they're just too crazy or something like that, let me know in the comments. Hopefully it's updating. If anybody has commented after Rocket Scribble. Okay, so it looks like Alan was saying yes, please. So yes, I will notate them. I'll definitely put them on Patreon. I think I'm going to make this one a lesson that anybody can access on there. So so that's what I'll do. I'll notate these 5 exercises out, and then you can go back in and have a little heads up of what's going on during the video. So that will be my goal. I'll try to have that up for you by tomorrow. All right, so does anybody have any questions? I'm going to go ahead and answer one that I think Robert had from before about fret wraps. I think I actually had 2 questions about fret wraps today, which is interesting because I don't think I've ever had a question about them before. And regarding fret wraps, remember earlier when we were talking about if you aren't using your left hand at all and you're doing these string skipping things, hear how those extra strings ring out? The idea of the fret wrap is it'll mute the strings slightly so they don't ring out as loud. And you don't really want to use them so much that they mute the strings entirely, because then when you go to play an open string, it'll be mega muted and it'll just be a little bit too much. I don't think I have one handy. I have one fret wrap somewhere, and I'm not sure where it is. I have made one out of a sock before, which I know is kind of weird, but you can kind of, and you can do them out of a hair tie too. I know Victor Wooten likes using a hair tie to do that, but basically if you have something that's smaller than the neck around, that's just like a soft material, you can kind of make one, or you can buy one. And the advantage of the buying ones is like they're more like a watch strap kind of thing, where it's padded on one side, and then if there's a little strap material that goes through a little, a smaller version of this. I don't even know what you call those little brackets or whatnot, but then you can pull it, and then it velcros over so that you can tighten it to the string at the level you want it to push down to mute. So if you haven't seen fret wraps, they are pretty cool. I wish I had one handy to help you out with. But basically, I'm just going to give you the idea of what it does. So if I were to use my finger like a fret wrap, I could put it over the right next to the nut. You hear how the notes sound a little bit more muted? So you may not want it that muted. You may want it more like here, rather than just so that extra times when you switch from string to string isn't rattling as much, like rumbling like thunder, you know? So that's kind of the point of the fret wrap in one regard. The other regard is when we're playing notes that are fretted, they have a natural tendency to sound a little bit more muted, whereas when we play the open strings, they can stand out like a sore thumb sometimes because they just resonate so much louder than the other ones. The other idea of the fret wrap is it makes the open strings sound a little bit more even with the fretted notes. But you could also do that by muting with your palm on the back over here. And you can mute all the notes that way, which kind of has the idea of making the metal strings. If you have a U bass with metal strings, it'll make those sound a little bit more like the upright because we're killing some of the sustain, and really the sound of the upright, it just has a lot less sustain to it than a plugged-in electric bass. And so that's part of the reason why the rubber strings, or technically polyurethane strings, sound more like the upright, is because the material already makes them sound a little bit more muted. And there was another question about them, and it was, are they necessary, or are they useful rather, on the rubber strings? And I think they're most useful on the metal strings, but they will still stop the strings from ringing out loudly in between notes if you want to have a fret wrap rather than worrying about your right hand thumb doing the muting or your left hand fingers that aren't playing at the moment, spending that much effort on the muting. You could let the fret wrap do that for you. I personally don't use them a bunch unless I'm doing like tapping, because when you do a lot of tapping stuff, whoops, if you're doing like two-handed tapping stuff, which I don't really do on U-bass much, but I do on bass guitar, you're using a lot of fingers on both hands, so you don't really have any free to mute as easily. So it's nice to have something muting the strings that you don't want to ring out in between. So that is the point of a fret wrap. That's my opinion of them, and I think they're pretty cool. Okay, so let's see. It looks like John has a question. Do I find that I'm gonna, you think being a U-bass player, I'm just gonna call them the black strings that Kala makes. Let's see what the question is about them. Are they harder to mute than round wounds, more in the way of residual noise during playing? I feel like it's a lot more on the round wounds, honestly. If you have metal round wound strings, they're gonna ring out louder. And basically, it may bug you more with the other ones, I'll just say the rubber strings, because if they're muted and kind of ringing out, then the notes that you're hitting aren't going to stand out in a punchy way above that extra string noise. But honestly, you're going to get string noise out of any of the strings. And if you have a punchier attack, it won't get swallowed up by that string noise, but the noise will still be there. So one option, of course, is that fret wrap we were just talking about. The other option is just learning how to mute between the hands to get the strings to not ring out unintentionally. That's a great question. Yeah, I'm recording muting is a lot more of an issue. Like a lot of times, I'll play and do certain things that might look like bad technique because I'm trying to figure out how to mute for the studio appropriately. But that is a good question. I feel like the metal wrap strings are actually noisier unless you get the flat wound strings, in which case I think those have a little bit less noise. But that is a great follow-up to that question. Okay, so Alan, when I am doing these things, these are exercises, and his question, by the way, is do I alternate the pointer and the middle finger all the time, or do I ever use one a couple times in a row, or just play in a row? And the answer is yes, you don't always alternate. Like some good examples. If you were doing actually that's not a great example. If you're doing like where you're doing a low octave and then going up to the high octave and hitting 2 notes on that one, well, I would recommend going index, middle. For me, that's more comfortable rather than going. Because if you do anything else where you're alternating, then you'd have to change your finger pattern every other time around. And so if it's like a 3-note pattern like that, 1, 2, 3, then I will probably hit index 2 times in a row before hitting the other note. And then it's been pointed out on a couple videos that I don't always alternate. Sometimes you don't want to alternate if you're trying to get all the notes to sound very consistent. So James Jamerson, playing on a lot of those Motown tracks, he'd use one finger the entire time, and he just has a really fast pointer finger. And part of the reason for doing that is to get a really consistent sound, because your middle finger and your pointer finger are going to hit the notes slightly harder or slightly lighter unless you spend a whole bunch of time really working to make them as consistent as possible. So a lot of times I'll hit the index finger more than the middle finger. So I'm starting to have a short in the cable. So sometimes if there's enough time to get from one note to another, I will just do the pointer finger 2 times, followed by pointer middle on some other notes. So to answer your question, you don't always alternate, but it is a cool exercise to alternate on stuff you wouldn't normally, because I think sometimes that challenges your mind more and challenges your fingers more, and you might actually gain a lot from doing that anyway. So if I was doing that same, I was alternating the whole time. It's so weird though. I mean, you might be able to benefit from doing some of that as well. But being able to alternate is what will give you speed when it's important. So that's the reason why all of these warm-up exercises incorporate that. Does anybody else have any questions? Questions? So the other thing is, you could start with that warm-up exercise, that last one. You could start with the first arpeggio going down from the 7th. 7, 5, 3, 1. 4th fret on the D string, 5th fret on the A string, 2nd fret on the A string, 3rd fret on the E string, and then go up the next arpeggio. So that's kind of an extra challenge if you wanted to. Oops, I hope I played it right. As you can tell, that's one I haven't done a lot. So it might be tricky, but it might be kind of fun to try to do. So that is another option there. Do I have any more questions? Hopefully all of your questions are coming through. If there are any that I missed, just retype them, because it means that it didn't come up over here for whatever reason. And is there anything you guys would like to hear, or yeah, just anything of that nature? So one thing I think I didn't say was, why are these warm-up exercises important? And one of the reasons is dexterity. If you're practicing doing all these things, then your fingers are getting stronger, you're getting used to stretching, you're getting used to switching different positions faster. So all these things can be helpful in songs that switch positions, you know, kind of getting used to these different boxes of playing these different positions. So that's one reason. But the major 7 arpeggio, it might help a little bit with certain walking lines in jazz when we get into more complex walking lines. So like I had a student today that kind of found some stuff on his own. He was emailing me about it. And if you're like doing a walking line, let's say you're staying on the same chord for 2 measures, it might come in handy to have that 7th in there so that you're not merely playing an arpeggio and playing the root note twice, right? So you could end up going, you just have an extra note with that 7th there. But another thing is you could put one of the chords in an inversion. And this is jumping way ahead. I'm not sure how many people are going to follow on this one, but like let's say we were doing a 2-5-1 progression. And we're just doing that. So that's our like stock line that we can play on it. But what if we went? You could walk into the 3rd instead of walking into the root of each chord. So that's a more advanced concept. Probably losing you guys on that one a little bit. But if you understand what I'm saying, you can outline a 7th chord arpeggio, and then you could go down 1 fret, and that ends up being the 3rd of the scale that goes along with the next chord. So if you were playing an A minor 7, you'd have those notes, and then we were going to a D7. It's a very, very common progression. So those are the 7th chord arpeggios on that. But we could go up 1 7th chord arpeggio, and then go from there back 1 fret, and that becomes the 3rd of the D7 arpeggio. So it just gives you some extra options with walking lines, although you don't want to do that too much because, like we said in the other walking line lesson, it's really important to hit root notes on the downbeats as much as possible for the soloist to not get lost and for the band to not get lost. If you're playing with some intermediate players rather than advanced players, it helps them out a lot. If you're always walking into the 3rd of a chord on the downbeat, it can be a little confusing to them. But some of these concepts from this exercise kind of get used in walking lines. So you're just being able to connect one chord to the next chord by the root or by the 7th or something of that nature. So that's one way that gets used. Also, you're just practicing arpeggios, which is awesome. You're practicing doing 1 finger per fret, but doing not random, but skipping over notes within that pattern. So you're getting used to your fingers going from like middle finger to pointer finger to ring finger out of order, which is kind of nice with that one as well. And then challenging all that with keeping this hand alternating, which I'm not sure I was doing the entire time. But if you do add that extra challenge, then that's something else in addition. Does anybody have any final questions? I haven't seen a question in a while. I'm going to give you guys 1 more minute, and then we'll wrap it up. I want to mention that if any of these concepts are really confusing and you feel like you want extra work on them, I am teaching Skype lessons. So if you go to stephencoxmusic.com/Skype, STEPHENCOX music.com/Skype, you can look up how to take lessons with me. And I will be happy to help you with this stuff and many more concepts, and we'll kind of come up with an overall plan based on your goals as a player. So once again, I will probably put that in the description later on, and I will also try to include a link to all these exercises. But I think that's about it for today. I haven't seen any more questions come in. If there were any questions, I guess I'm going to check 1 or 2 more places to make sure that no questions came in on the other sites, and then that'll be it. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, nothing on. It looks like nothing on Facebook. Let me check. Sometimes I ask for questions on Facebook and Patreon for the week. Let's see. Did anybody have any questions? And I'll double check before closing out to see if anybody else adds a question on the feed. So on Patreon, it doesn't look like we have any either. Give it a second. But these exercises are part of how I built up speed working on things, going through scales and exercises and all that stuff. And sometimes it's just nice to practice alternating index and middle. And you can kind of do that as a mindless activity, building up a little bit of finger strength. You know, you could do that while watching TV or while maybe even while scrolling through the feed with your other hand on Facebook or whatever you're doing in your spare time. You might be able to multitask and do more than just that. All right. Hey, Sean. So you see this channel that popped up that says Soul Night Live? That's my buddy Sean. As you can see, I'm wearing a Story of a Life shirt. Soul stands for Story of a Life. And that is a band that both of us are in. And he actually has a podcast that sometimes I co-host on. This week I'm not co-hosting, but his starts at 10 o'clock on Saturdays as well. So if you want to check that out, what he does is he interviews some fairly famous musicians. So when I say fairly famous, I mean they're pretty famous among certain circles. So they may not be, you know, the current pop icons of right now, but for instance, he had the keyboard player for Kansas. So if you know the band Kansas, the one that did Carry On My Wayward Son and Dust in the Wind and all those songs, he had the current keyboardist from that band come on his show, and we interviewed him. And then I think tonight he's got the drummer of a band called Spocksbeard, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong. And he'll be interviewing them. And he does that on Facebook Live, and then the next day posts it on YouTube. So add his channel, and you'll see some stuff on there, and you might see a few videos where I'm in there as well. But that's about it. So I will see you guys next week. I hope you've enjoyed working on these exercises. If you have any questions about the exercises, I'll be on here next week as well. I want to mention that the live stream at the end of this month might end up on a different day, but for next week, it's still going to be Saturdays, still going to be at 7. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.